So looking back over my notes about what I wrote about the previous tier list is that I actually made a few mistakes. Wickerbottom is actually not B tier, but where she actually belongs is all the way down firmly at the bottom of D. So about 9 months ago, I made a tier list ranking characters in both Don't Starve and Don't Starve together, in what, in my opinion, determined who were the best characters in the game. However, my video, despite doing for the most part positive, there was still a large portion of people who were genuinely upset, despite it just being my opinion. So this video is not only to include the 2 new characters and the 1 reworked character, but also to address critique on my last tier list and defend why I think the tier list I have now is actually fairly accurate when it comes to my values. So let's start with the new characters. First off, reworked Wendy. If I'm being completely honest, I wouldn't really move her after her rework. I mean, her rework gave her minion a little bit better overall stats and also let her get sanity a little bit better, but for the most part, I wouldn't really move her at all. She doesn't really have anything new or game-changing.
You don't deserve to be on that
B
cross,
tier.
you lazy, wine-loving bisexual!
Alright, next up we have Mermaid Girl Wirt, and if you'll allow me to rant about Wirt for a minute, I just want to say that Wirt is, without a doubt, one of my favorite characters. If you've noticed how highly I've spoken of Weber and Wilbur, you've probably guessed that I have a thing for faction characters. Wirt is not only a faction character, but she's also balanced due to veganism, so B tier. She introduces a completely different playstyle that is dependent on base and farm building. Not only that, but her joining the Constant quite literally uplifts an entire faction. Merms used to be nothing but an enemy, but now, with a Wirt around, there's a completely new dynamic for them. Out of the 4 characters that were added to DST, I think Wirt is, without a doubt, the most unique, and I'd love to see more faction characters like her around in the future. Next up, we have the boy with the big dog. The boy who likes fire trucks and monster trucks. And his name is... Walter! In all honesty, I do have some critique of Walter, but for the most part, I do think he's a good addition. So, Walter is the ranger character of DST. He has several different ammo types for his slingshot, which I found a use for most of which. He also has a pretty hefty downside of losing sanity, which can actually be fairly useful for insanity players or heavy magic playstyles. Oh, he's also allergic to bees, so just don't fight bees. Why I put him so high though is because he is quite literally a pea shooter from Plants vs. Zombies. If you get anything, and I mean anything that blocks off an enemy, aka pigs, lobsters, lure plants, or even marble sculptures, Walter can literally just sit and do crazy amounts of damage with his Home Depot mosaic tile marbles. As for my critique of Walter, there already is a ranger character known as Wheeler in the Don't Starve universe, which isn't a problem in itself. As a matter of fact, more power to more ranger characters. But Wheeler is overall better than Walter in almost every way, and seeing as how they're already from both 2 different games, it's creating a bigger difference gap between Don't Starve and DST when, in my opinion, the game should be gradually becoming more similar. Still, I do enjoy playing as Walter, it's just I can't help but feel that he's inferior to Wheeler in every way.
Do you believe in destiny?
Perhaps. Alright, well that's the current tier list as I have it, and I do still think it's a fairly accurate tier list, but I promised those who didn't approve of it an explanation, and this is what I came up with. So I came up with 3 different categories of character, and I'm gonna redo my tier list for each category. I'm not gonna talk about each character though, because the video would literally be an hour if I did that. First up we have push characters, and push characters are those that just fight monsters and bosses really well. They survive with very little downsides to their fighting or survivability, and push characters usually have above average health, damage, or speed, and most of the time they work well with others, but they also just benefit from flying solo. Good examples of these characters are Wolfgang, WX, and Wartox, who are more than capable of rushing ruins and killing at least 1 boss before day 30. However, if it's just a hardcore fighting style, characters like Wendy, Wormwood, and West are among the worst in the game, with low attack damage or very poor healing methods, so there's just no chance that their pros will ever come in much handy, not alone at least. Support characters are more so the social and dependent side, and as you would probably guess, it's the polar opposite of what the push tier list looks like. And although you certainly can work solo as a support in a lot of instances, and just be considered a push or utility character, for instance Wicker Bottom and her hentai slapper machines, which I hear are really popular with kids nowadays.
Fatality.
Support characters often have the benefit of having really good synergy with other characters, and in certain cases being straight up overpowered. For instance, Wolfgang partnered with a Warley has among the highest damage output in the game, and with a Wicker Bottom partner with a Wormwood, you can create so much food that you might actually begin to question if you could make communism work.
You can't.
However, characters like Wolfgang and WX don't really have all that much to offer to support other characters, which means for supportive playstyles, they rank really low. WX ranking the absolute lowest, because on top of offering no supportive tools, he also needs to consume one of the most valuable resources, gears, in order to achieve maximum effectiveness. On the other hand, Wigfrid, although her meteor diet is a pain to deal with, she can still provide spears and helmets, which makes her a viable support. Even Wilson can be considered a support to some extent with his beard here. Also, Wilson is just overall the average middle anchor character of all my tier lists. He will never go lower or higher. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that Wilson is inevitable. Utility characters are kind of a wild card. They're mainly for situational situations.
This big brain
including killing certain bosses or using certain factions or items to the best of their abilities. More often than not, though, they won't partner directly well with others unless their issues are worked on. But when they do, it's usually in every character's best interest. A good example of a utility character would be Mr. Spider-Boy.
Spider-Man.
Not in that onesie, you're not.
Weber, who can't really uplift his spider faction or make any other character friendly towards them, which keeps him from being a viable support, but he can still utilize spiders for attacks even if they aren't the best in a fight. And even though they aren't the best in a fight, there's usually a lot of them, aka Weber equals Weber. Wilbur, I've already talked about him, best minions in the game, single player character only though, etc. If there's a word around, be friends with her. She's probably already planning to take over the world, so you might as well be on her side when she does. I don't know why I'm still including Warbucks.
I wish I could let it go, but I can't.
Today we're gonna be playing as, where's Warbucks? What the fuck? What the fuck happened to War? It's actually kind of ironic considering I didn't even play him when he wasn't even deleted yet. As for Wheeler, her gun is amazing. I don't think anybody is arguing that. But her compass, it's monumental garbage. I cannot find a single use for the compass aside from finding something that I lost, which I won't be able to find unless I have more than one of it, which defeats the whole purpose of me losing something and using the compass to find it! Literally, Wes's balloons are more useful.
I'm popular.
But I think I've overall made my point here with my tier list and the 3 categories and why I put the characters in the tiers that I did. And if you still don't agree with me or you think you have a more accurate tier list, feel free to share it. And I guess one more question that could come out of this video that was overall continued from my last tier list is there any actual reason to play as Wes? I guess if you wanted to use his balloons to make a hard Catcoon play, which, by the way, doesn't work in any capacity.
Yeah, that didn't work out.
Or if you wanted to speedrun Nightmare Fuel, I guess you could, but to be perfectly honest, I wasn't lying when I said Wes was the most powerful character in the entire roster and possibly one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. He gives you the ability to become more powerful yourself and in turn, improve all your other characters. He's already been reworked again, and he's shown off his power to be several people at once, more than once. The problem with Wes being so powerful is, I don't know if he's good or evil, or what he's planning, but whatever it may be, the mole worms still have to die. The entire galaxy being under threat isn't an excuse to let the mole worms live, even if that means that I'll die to Wes.
Like that's ever gonna happen. What a load.
You chose that fat imbecile over me. I will sacrifice whatever it takes to stop her. Oh, I hope you do, James. I hope you do.
My name's not James, by the way.